As promised, kids, I was going to discuss Bitcoin. And when I believe I mentioned it, it was about $55,000 at that time. Subsequent to that, it went to about $64,000, if I remember correctly. Okay, and then after that, it's gone down to the low $30,000, and now I believe it's in the middle $30,000s. I said a couple months ago that I wasn't endorsing Bitcoin, but enjoy the ride, since PayPal and a number of banks have now authorized it. And at one time, Mr. Musk said that you could buy his cars with Bitcoin, and then he subsequently said you couldn't buy cars. He said he put about $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, to the best of my knowledge. He's still got $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, but it's very controversial now. And I had once said, not once, but I said that the reason I didn't like Bitcoin from the very beginning was that I knew from the very beginning that more than 50% of the Bitcoin was manufactured in China. And then the second biggest manufacturer of Bitcoin was Russia, where there's no rule of law. And I hadn't really looked, or cared for that matter, because I'm not a tree hugger, that Bitcoin was crappy for the environment because of all the energy it burns. Okay. Having said all that, I then, subsequent to that, I said that, well, it doesn't matter those things, because even though it has no real backing, either is the U.S. dollar. When the U.S. dollar went off the gold standard many years ago, before most of you were born, Bitcoin doesn't have any backing other than its following, not dissimilar to the U.S. dollar. And I said again, in the previous filming of this, I'm not trying to equate the U.S. dollar with Bitcoin in any way, shape, manner, or form. Okay, but I didn't like it because it didn't have a following, and I didn't believe in it to ever be able to be used as currency, because, as I said, you buy my rolls for $750,000, and they deliver it, and Bitcoin has gone from $75,000 to $65,000. What did I really pay for the car? Okay, anyway, I've said all that. Now, but there's a big difference between QLA and Bitcoin. Now, QLA, fundamentally, you start with no money, but you can earn millions, and the growth is a quantum leap, or it's geometric. The return on zero invested is infinite. Now, I started with $820. I grew it to $450 million in a little less than 8 years, 55 million %, and 67,000% a year. That's history. That's proven fact, absolute. Okay. Now, Bitcoin, you need to start with something, somewhere, some amount of money. Now, if you were fortunate enough to have either been given Bitcoin where you didn't have any money invested, or you started when it was pennies or dollars, and I do have some kids that did. And I think I mentioned we have a couple of Bitcoin billionaires, QLA. I had nothing to do with it. They did it on their own, but they had Bitcoin forever. But the growth is much lower or slower than QLA. Now, intellectually, those are just words, right? And we got a lot of smart asses that will say a lot of things about QLA. But as I said last time, when you're a Bitcoin believer, you're like a zealot. You're like a born-again Christian. You're like a crazy psycho. But now let's look at some of the numbers, facts, real live numbers. Now, I've taken not the best mentee I have, certainly not the worst mentee, but a mentee that's probably in the top 15%, maybe the top 20%. And we've taken a slice of time. And the slice of time is from the end of 2019 to now, the 1st of June, a couple of days ago. Okay? Roughly 18 months. What did Bitcoin do, and what did QLA do? The column on the left is Bitcoin closing price the first day of each month. So that's December of 2019, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. of 2020 and January, February, March, April, May, June of 2021. That's not the 20th of June or the 21st of May. It's the year, but it's the first day of each month. Okay. And you can see on December the 1st, 2019, Bitcoin was selling for $7,381.96. And then the first of every month subsequent to that, in August, it went up to 2020. It went up to $11,000. And then in December 2020, it was $18,000. And then it jumped in February to $33,000. And then in March, $49,000. And then April, $58,000. And then start backing off. And then the 1st of June, just a few days ago, it was $36,000, $419.75. Okay, now, we've taken a QLA mentee. Coincidentally, and one of the reasons we use his numbers is he coincidentally, and this is roughly to show what happened during Corona. Now, December 2019 is a little before Corona started, and Corona arguably still with us. So he closed his first deal, and these numbers on the enterprise value are numbers that were produced by a Big Four accounting firm as part of his review. His first deal, the enterprise value was $1,451,800. Now, what did he make though? Or what value accrued to him? Well, he has 62% of the company, or $901,567. So when I say roughly, he's a short millionaire off the first deal. The second deal was $2,000,005. Then the third deal was $4 million. Fifth deal, $5 million. Fourth deal, fifth deal, $7 million. Sixth deal, $8 million. Seventh deal, $9 million. Call it $10 million. And as of the deal of just a few days ago, the enterprise value, according to the Big Four accounting firm, was $13 million. The enterprise value, we took the average. We took the high, which is higher than this by about 20%, and we took the low, which is about 20% lower. So we averaged the high-low together, and that's where we come up with $13 million. So in a transaction, he's done $13,373,640 worth of transactions. And of that $13,000,003, to his account, okay, and during a number of these, now these are Corona. The first deal wasn't Corona. So he should get extra kudos for that, but these numbers don't reflect that. He's got $8,305,030.44. Now, coincidentally, I talked to him about something completely different the last couple of days. And to double check the numbers. And he looked at them and he said, not a direct quote, they look generally the same, but they're not. Because we've translated his euro numbers to dollars. Because he did these in euros. This kid's in healthcare in Europe. And so he said and the dollars would be a little higher because the dollar is, there's about $1.15 to a euro or something like that. Pardon? Okay, 1.22, whatever, okay. So he says, he said to me, well, I don't feel $8 million rich, which I thought was funny, because we haven't exited yet, right? Okay. But during the same time frame, one of you meatheads, I'm positive I can find one of you meatheads that bought Bitcoin in December 2019. $7,000. Now, where'd you get the $7,000? Did you borrow it? Did you have it? Okay, that's a question. When we started looking at the rates of return in the next slide, but maybe some of you, they gave it to you. It's not likely, but some of you have rich in-laws, etc. Full disclosure, I told you that I don't know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, my wife bought a little Bitfuck, and she has shares of the Googles and the Facebooks and those kind of companies for our grandkids. So we have some Bitfuck. So full disclosure, it's not much. It might be much for you, but it's not much for us. And I have nothing to do with the management of it. And Sally's handling all that. It's $7,000 to $36,000. It looks pretty impressive. It doesn't look as impressive to me from $1.5 million to $13 million. Not to me. Because we're still looking at tens of thousands. Now let's take a look at the rate of return. Now remember, roughly speaking, and I tell the kids, you should have about 2/3 of the 100% to your account. Now the other 38, is that right? 38% are the chairman, the other boards of directors, etc. The numbers would be significantly greater, but we want to know what accrued to your account. Okay, now let's move. Okay. Now graphically, when Kat did this for me, I looked at it, I thought it was wrong to begin with. It's not. It happens to be correct, 100% correct, because I couldn't see the Bitcoin. I said, well, what the fuck? We got to be doing apples and apples, Kat. And then she came down and said, well, we are, sir. It's just the Bitcoin line is so flat that it doesn't register. It's at the very bottom of the slide. Because it's in the thousands and tens of thousands, it doesn't register. Now, forevermore in my mind, that's how I'm going to refer to Bitcoin. It doesn't register. Then you go up to the dark line, which is the QLA Mentee share at 62%, which is a little over, when you go above June 2021, it's a little over 8 million. And then if you go to the QLA average enterprise value, in other words, the total value, including the shares owned by the rest of the board, it's above 13 million. And we didn't do a chart on this, but it's an interesting exercise. So the board of directors have earned the difference between 8 million and 13 million. So the board of directors, now, this is an exaggeration, for doing nothing. Let's go back. Okay. The difference between 8,000,003 and 13,000,003, 5 million, is owned by the board. Now, I tease the board members, they do fuck all. And they got paid $5 million. If I remember correctly, his board, he has 5 other members. So each board member, roughly, got $1 million. If you can't convince a non-executive board member to fucking do this, something's wrong with you. You're sick. Now, some of you, a few of you, maybe 1% or 0.5% of you have figured this out on your own. But I'm so fucking tired of hearing about Bitcoin. You have no idea. If it goes, okay, let's say it went to, let's say it tripled this. Let's say it went to 110 or 15,000. Doesn't make any difference. Now, we're going to see why it doesn't make any difference. Now, I double-checked these numbers with Bruce the Whipple, engineer. First, Bitcoin. Investment of $7,381. Now, when I did the numbers, I didn't do it by the calculator. I did it the old-fashioned way. And I came up with roughly the same numbers, but it didn't look right. So I sent it off to Bruce the Whipple, which I do a lot, and had Bruce the Whipple double-check them. Actually, he triple-checked it for me. And so your amount of return was $36,400. Remember, we're talking about 18 months. December 1, 2019 to June 1, 2020. And you push that little button, as Sally would say, and you have an investment gain of $29,000 or ROI of 393% and an annualized ROI of 189%, which sounds great, doesn't it? Sounds great. Okay. And then you have the pie chart down below. Invested 20%, profit 80. Okay. That looks good until you compare it to QLA. Now, in full disclosure, in Germany, where this kid did this, to start, now I didn't want to put the 25 grand. To start a GmbH, you got to put up 25K. That's to start it, to be considered a regular company. Okay? But he borrowed the 25K. But apples and apples, he started with 7 grand on the Bitcoin, so he started with 25K. So his amount of return was $8,305,030 during that same 6-month period, December through June 2021. Investment gain is $8 million. The ROI is 33,000%. And the annualized ROI is 4,696%. Now let's just go back because you meatheads may not remember. The ROI there was 393%, call it 400%. And annualized ROI was 189%. And let's jump back to the QLA. 33,000 and 4,600. 393 and 189. 33,000 and 4,600. No fucking comparison. None. Zero. And if Bitcoin triples in value in the hundreds of thousands, if Bitcoin goes to 300,000, 500,000, no comparison. Do you understand? Other than the 25 grand this kid borrowed to form a GmbH, which I wouldn't count. If you don't count the 25 grand he borrowed, because the return, and let's say that he invested $1 or a penny, the return is 83 million% on the QLA mentee. Kids, you don't know what you're talking about. Or you don't understand. Or you don't want to understand. The only difference between this comparison and my original Great Western comparison, $820 into about 450 million, which is 55 million%, is 40 years in difference in time. They didn't have Bitcoin then, but they had Bitcoin equivalents. They had other hot shot things that you could invest in back in the day. I just want you to remember, and this kid is just getting started, and as we speak, although Kat is fact checking it, the kid did another deal today. This kid, the mentee, he did another deal today, which he added about 2.3 million and 60% of that. And I don't know what the enterprise value is. So, but I mean, he added another couple million. So now he's got probably investment gain of over 10 million in 18 months. Now that's not quite generational wealth. Generational wealth to me is normally 10 million in EBITDA and 100 million in revenue, total deals, or a combination thereof. But I mean, I knew intuitively what the numbers were. I didn't know the percentage, and thanks to Kat and Bruce the Whipple for memorializing it for me. But I mean, there's just no comparison. And I'm sure that now that we have, unfortunately, we're having to pay YouTube for the comments, etc. I'm sure that you'll have something to think about, something to chew on. I enjoy the Godfather series. I try to do the Godfather series in conjunction with something else. And after this, I'm getting ready for my Zoom call with executive producers and talent agents about the new idea that I've been approached with, which came out of the LA Times article. In the LA Times article, again, I want to thank the LA Times and Lewis. But I'm still swinging at the plate. And as Babe Ruth used to say, and I'm not old enough to know him, but he said that every time I strike out, he says, I know I'm closer to a home run. On that happy note, kids, stay safe. Don't let the corona get you down, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.